My family's been here in Matador for a long time, 6 generations anyway.
My great-granddad came into this country looking for a ranch in the early 70s, 1870s.
My granddaddy came to Motley County in 1889 in a covered wagon.
My family's been in Motley County for well over 100 years.
We may have to cut our herd counts way down in order to survive. Our wells are going dry.
We have to have water. We just have to.
We're losing population, and probably the biggest reason for that is jobs.
The kids that go away to college, they find something better to do. They went where the jobs were at.
They say when the school closes, Matador will be gone.
It's been a long dry spell.
But Mother Nature and the grace of God will give us some rainfall, and we'll be a Garden of Eden again one of these days.
I'm Joyce Archer,
I'm Leo Archer.
and we live 7.5 miles west of Matador, and we have no neighbors that are really close. We have one that's about 2 or 3 miles up Dutchman Creek, and that's about it. We didn't start raising cattle till my mother died, and my daddy had
And renal failure.
yeah, and he was on dialysis. That's when we started the cattle business, and we almost starved to death, and Leo worked on lawnmowers and everything else, and we got it going, and Daddy said we couldn't do it on this smaller cattle, but we have. We enjoyed it, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Cattle got to have water. We can't go on trips because we can't afford to not know that our cattle might not have water. If you're depending on a pump, it might not come on. A windmill might break down and you don't have water. You got to be there to make sure. Government's not in ranching like they are in farming. You don't get insurance, but farmers do. If your crop don't make, you buy insurance. You don't do that with livestock. If you raise a cow and she dies, or if you go out and buy a bull and it dies, you've lost it. That's your loss. And with farming, it's different.
I'm Nancy Archer Branson.
I'm John Archer. We're at the Flying V.O. Ranch, and it was originally homesteaded by our great-grandfather.
When we were kids, we got to spend all of our summers down here. We grew up riding horses down the creek, and you know, you go out and you feed the cows, you see the baby calves being born and out playing with each other.
You know, I can remember being here with my grandfather. I'd stand on the running board of the tractor with him while he went back and forth plowing and planting. It wasn't long before I was driving the tractor and he was standing on the running board while I drove the tractor.
It's getting harder to live off the land. We've got water issues that are a great concern. I'm worried about what happens when we do run out of water here. How will we maintain? I know there's diversification of ways that we can make money off the land. We have to have water. We just have to.
My name's Guy Campbell. I have a cattle ranch about 12 miles west of Matador. It's a historical ranch. My great-grandfather was one of the founders of the old Matador Ranch. It has a lot of history and it has a lot of meaning. It has a lot of meaning to the family. It's just part of our heritage, you might say. There's no railroad track runs up through the property up there going up on the cap rock. They had those little locomotive engines, and they would climb that cap rock and they'd kick out these cinders. And when they do, it'd come out on the grass and set everything on fire. And that usually came through there about 12 o'clock at night. And I don't know how many times during my lifetime, Daddy come up there and wake me and my brother up and said, "Get up, we got to go fight fire." And we took a barrel of water and set it in the back of the pickup and filled that barrel about 2/3 full of water. And we had a bundle of old toe sacks. Toe sacks is where feed came in, old burlap out sacks. We'd fight fire all night long, and then a lot of times the sun would come up, it'd be time for us to go to school. And so a lot of times we didn't get a chance to take a bath. We just dirty and nasty, and smelled like smoke. Back in those days, when something caught on fire, I mean, all the neighbors, all the help, everybody that you knew would show up, and because we did, we fought that fire by hand.
Back when I was a boy, we lived up there in the big house, so we always loved to come down and play on the creek. In fact, this whole area here was practically under shade, and the creek was like a sandy beach. But now you can see it's grown up so bad that it doesn't rain like it used to. The grandkids don't get to see the same things that we got to enjoy and see because the old cottonwood trees have all died, and of course the old creek growed up like it is. They can't come down here and take the shoes off and play in the sand like we did.
When I was a child, this creek was all sand from these trees, that bank to this bank over here, that old cottonwood, and this was all water running. Farmers up on the Cap Rock have started growing corn the last few years, and they're pulling all the groundwater out, and this creek will go down and not be any water. I mean, it will be down to nothing. And Leo has to go in there and dig down to get to the water for it to start seeping back up, so we have water here.
We have rule of capture in Texas, and this is different from most other states. Eastern states do not have this. Rule of capture means that all the water underneath my property belongs to me, and I can pump out as much as I want to pump out. Now, if my neighbor has a well and I pump out so much water that his well goes dry, tough luck. We've seen this with water companies. They buy water rights and they pump until there is no more water. What water districts attempt to do is to make people aware that it's a renewable resource, renewable by rain. And we are in a drought situation, that rain does not come and our water levels begin to drop.
The drought is an extremely serious problem, and it's not a short-term problem. You're looking at probably a minimum of 10 years once we really get rainfall coming again before the economy really gets anywhere close back to normal. We need to protect our water resources. The water we use here to produce crops, the big cities say, oh, we need that water for drinking water, and to be honest, to run your toilet system, your sewer system, and everything else. But we need the water resources too. Your major metropolitan areas can't raise cows. They can't raise cotton. You have to have the rural areas thriving to produce the goods and services that the major metropolitan areas need. And so we are necessary to them, and we need help, yes, from the government in the way that we do our export markets and our import markets and tariffs and everything else. We need to help other countries, but we need to help our own people. We need to help rural America also.
And so up on the plains, they've decided in their water district to limit the amount of water that can be pumped out by irrigation. And this has met very great resistance among the farmers. They see it as an invasion of their property rights. But the way I look at it is those people who've already pumped the aquifer down to half have already violated my water rights because my streams have either dried up or will dry up. And there has to be an equitable solution. So it might be wise to limit the type of crops that we grow that require a lot of water. You can have drought-resistant cotton. We can always grow wheat. And it may be that we have to find another cash crop. Maybe it's guar, maybe it's sunflowers, maybe it's something that we don't know about yet.
I'm Jeremy Jameson. My family's been in Motley County for well over 100 years. Everybody at a young age learned how to pull their weight, so to speak. I joined the volunteer fire department here in Matador whenever I was a junior in high school. It's one of those things that somebody has to do it. So I learned a lot. The reason we have to blade the grass, without fuel, fire can't burn. And if we blade it down to dirt and roll the grass that we blade away from the fire, then there's no fuel to burn. On February 28th, a friend of mine called and told me there was a fire at Roaring Springs. Roaring Springs is about 8 miles south of here, and wanted to know if I would come help, that resources was scarce. And I said, well, yeah, I'll come down there on a motor grader if I need to. And he said, well, I think you better.
We'd had great rainfall and we'd grown just all kinds of tall grasses and things that I hadn't seen ever. And then it was followed by 10 months of no rain. And all of those grasses that grew just became hard and brittle and dry. And then it was only a spark and the whole thing went off.
I intercepted that fire about 4 miles west of Matador. And as soon as I saw it, I told all these guys on radio, I said, do not get out in front of this. Do not.
I'd never heard him say anything like that. So I instantly knew that this was something that we had never dealt with. Before we got to town, it was here, and I can tell you, I've never seen anything like it and don't ever want to see anything like it, but it's undescribable.
We were sitting in here and the scanner went off and said they had a fire 7.5 miles west of Matador. And I said, Leo, that's us. We're 7.5 miles out of Matador. And he goes and gets in his pickup and leaves. And I didn't hear from him anymore.
When I got right up here, I could really see it. This whole country back in here was lit up. And I could see 2 horses running back and forth up that fence, hunting the way out of the fire. And I thought, well, the thing to do is beat it over there at that fence and cut 2 or 3 places where they can come along there and get out. And I started to get out of the truck, and I glanced up in the rearview mirror, and there were flames that was coming this way at about 60 miles an hour. And I said, I don't have time to get out and cut that fence and get back in my truck before that fire's here. So I gave up and took off down this old road. And I was driving my old red Chevrolet about 60 miles an hour down this dirt and barely staying in front of the fire. It was right behind my old truck, And I got right here, and that fire came across right behind me and went on up east. I got down here at this old boxcar, and I thought, well, I'm going to sit here for a little bit and see what happens. And I watched that fire cut across there, and I had 180 bales of hay stacked right back there in that little trap where that trailer's sitting. And I was sitting here, and it made a heck of a fire. It was all cured and ready. It was what my winter feed was set up for, but I ended up without a bale of hay.
A lot of people have asked us why we work so hard to fight a grass fire. And to me, the prime example is if the lumberyard catches on fire, yeah, we put it out. That lumberyard has insurance. The ranchers don't have any.
Dad called me. He said I'm burned out. Very shook up. Hooked up to a trailer, grabbed 2 horses, had a 5-hour drive that I probably made in about 4 hours. Only thing I knew, I had to get there. When I got to town, I came up by the Jameson Lake out there. I thought the whole town was on fire. I thought the whole town.
Well, he left and I didn't hear him more, and I tried calling him and I couldn't. I waited and I waited. He didn't come back. And Betty Campbell said, Joy, you gather up all your precious things and you get out of there. And I said, my house is precious. I couldn't think of a thing. I couldn't think of a thing. So finally I got us a change of clothes and our medicine and a toothbrush. And that was it. This house, that would have been my family burning. It just broke my heart.
One of my friends, well, Jeremy, his house was there and his daughter was running across the yard, just didn't know what to do. And back about 100 yards from her, there was a big fire tornado that came across. I don't know if anybody else saw it or not. It was, and not underestimating it, I would say 150 foot tall, easy. It was just the biggest one that I had ever seen. That was in the hottest of the hot at that point.
I mean, those 100 foot flames sounds like a big exaggeration, but it wasn't. As I approached, getting probably 300 yards from the highway, the visibility then came to nothing. It started making flames up in the air, sucking this grass. I mean, there was literally grass burning, going up in these tornadoes, at least 300 feet in the sky, as tall as the water tower. Started fearing for my life. I couldn't see which direction to go. There was fire on the north side of me, there was fire on the south side of me. Tremendously hot, and the gustnadoes started sucking the oxygen away from me and my motor grader, and it just completely pulled my machine down and killed it. So I just downed my head and started praying. And I told the Lord, I said, I can fight this stuff on the ground. I can hold my own with that. But this stuff in the sky, you're gonna have to help me with.
I'm always thinking, man, I hope this is not the one. In that particular fire, there was so much at stake, and it was such an intense fire that I was really praying. I mean, literally praying that this wasn't going to be the fire that we lost a fireman.
All the same, I pray for rain. Feel like wildfires follow me, and I cannot get away. All the way from the Pamlico out to Los Alamos. I pray for rain over many miles, but all I see is smoke.
And that night, Albert Thrasher and his wife were in the pickup. Their sons had brought equipment, and Gwen was praying, and she was praying that the fire would stop or turn, or that we'd be safe. And about 11 o'clock that night, the wind changed.
They carry fire, they settle me. let my words go where they will when I say a prayer.
So at that time, after I got through praying, I reached over and I hit the key again and it cranked. And I got on out of there and I could start to see a little bit. The wind switched directions a little bit. I had that comfort that the Lord was on our side then and going to try to help me through this. So from that moment on, I never got scared again.
And by this time, the fire departments had all been notified. We had fire trucks coming from Floydada, Lockney, Paducah. Everybody that had a water tank was hauling water to help out with the fire trucks and their water supply. Forestry Service had been notified and they sent dozers, started building roads and fire breaks. Where this old shop is located, the fire came within 100 feet at that fence, all the way around. And a truck was here from Paducah, and they went around and sprayed that, and they had been here all that night, and they were still here at 10 o'clock the next morning. If they hadn't been here, we would have been burned completely out. We wouldn't have had a house, we wouldn't have had a barn. We wouldn't have had a shop or an old raggedy house. And that's how much they've saved.
I called Leo and Joy Archer, and Leo had told me he had been burned out. Cameron said, I've been burned out. Said, I don't have a straw of hay left. I don't have any feed left. I guess I'll just ship all my cows. Knowing he's just like I am. He's had those cows all his life. Those cows mean a lot to you when they're yours. You know them. They're just, that's your life. Well, I hated to see him lose all of his cows. So the next morning I told Blair, I said, go load up a trailer load of hay and take it down there to Leo so he doesn't have to ship his cows, so he'll give me something to eat. And he did.
People were worried about us. They called. I had all my feed that I had baled and stacked, burned. And the next day, people brought me feed. And I never will forget that.
We had the best neighbors, and they all came down. We've had calls from people we hadn't even thought about in years. And I don't know what it is. My daddy rode some big Herefords, and we hoped to keep 20. Our daughter wanted to take them down to Fort Worth, and I said, no, don't rush us. We don't know what we're going to do yet.
Our parents are coming to an age where it's very difficult for them to manage the ranch any longer.
My dad has always been a hard worker, and he probably epitomizes what it takes to be a rancher in today's times, is that there's nothing he can't fix and there's nothing that he can't build. Anybody that makes a living in the ranching or farming has got to be able to do those things.
And we've talked about it. It's going to have to be a process. It's getting harder to live off the land. We've got water issues that are a great concern.
We're going to do the very best that we can as we go forward to maintain the legacy here. It takes a lot of money.
We're getting old, and Leo can't do it anymore, and that hurts him more than anything. He turned 80 this year, and I never thought I'd be living with an 80-year-old man, but I am.
We have a tragedy and somebody 30 miles away comes and helps us because we know everyone, and most of us have been here 4, 5, 6 generations. And
That's why we live here. That's why I struggle to survive here, but I do. I wouldn't have it any other way. And a lot of people think I'm crazy to encourage my kids to live in this town without any opportunity. I couldn't be any happier if they all stayed right here in Matador. If we don't, it'll be gone.
Half-broken horses running through my head. I try to tame them, corral and contain them. I try to put them all to bed. Half-broken horses never fall asleep, bucking in their stalls, kicking down the walls. They fight like hell to get free. They plead and plead, don't you break me, please don't break me. Take me how I am, half mean and wild, fragile like a child, with hopes and fears and blood running hot and fast. Take me how I am.
People ask about what the future is for this community, for ranching as a whole. I believe that we're facing some challenges that we never faced. You know, this country's in an economic crisis. It's more challenging than it's ever been to farm and ranch. But if you look at society as a whole and agriculture as a whole, we do more in agriculture with less than we've ever done before. And I would say, I think there's great opportunity for this community and agriculture in general. I don't know what we're going to see with the oil industry. I don't know what we're going to see with the wind industry, but I do think that you're going to see more industries coming into Motley County in the future. But today, agriculture still reigns, and I think that it's more important than it's ever been.
I think about my childhood every now and then. I really can't think of a place I'd rather been. Country folks will tell you, you'll never go wrong when you're living in the country. It's like living in a song. Matador, Texas, where my heart is at. I'd like to go back, but I can't find it on the map. One of these days I'll be heading back for more if I ever find my way back to Matador. Matador, Texas, where my heart is at.